Welcome to episode 189 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm talking with Daphne Williams of teachercareercoach.com about how to transition out of teaching and into another career. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript or find our new Truth for Teachers podcast community on Facebook. You can share your thoughts on the show there and reflect with other listeners in our private group. Educators, do you care deeply about wellness, equity, and social-emotional learning? Breathe for Change is a movement to enhance the health and well-being of teachers, students, and entire school communities. They offer the world's only 200-hour wellness, SEL, and yoga teacher training specifically for educators. And they partner with schools, districts, and organizations to enhance community-wide well-being. This is life-changing stuff. And applications for 2020 are now open. There are 10 intensive summer trainings held in San Francisco, NYC, Boston, Chicago, LA, Denver, Madison, Austin, DC, and Seattle. Breathe for Change will empower you to integrate mindfulness and socio-emotional learning into your classroom and community. Not only can you earn your 200-hour yoga teacher certification, you can also get grad credits and CEUs. If you are committed to using wellness as a vehicle for social change and want to join an incredible community of thousands of like-minded leaders, then join Breathe for Change and their movement at breatheforchange.com/truth. So my guest today is Daphne Williams. Daphne is a former teacher who became a consultant working for a large educational company, and she currently works full-time as an instructional designer. During some of her speaking engagements for the company at educational conferences, teachers often asked her how she got out of teaching and how she got the position that she had. She realized the huge need for information and support on transitioning out of teaching, and so she created the Teacher Career Coach. Let's dive in and get straight to the interview. So, Daphne, I love the way that you are destigmatizing teachers' desire to leave the profession. I think that's something that is so important and so needed. I wrote an article a couple years ago called 5 Things I Learned from Quitting My Teaching Job Twice. And in that article, it's also a podcast episode, I tried to validate the mixed emotions that I think a lot of teachers feel when they're in those situations where what's best for you conflicts with what's best for your students. And so you just feel really torn about the decision. So I'm wondering what you would say to teachers who know that it's time to move on professionally, but they feel embarrassed or guilty about that.
So this is actually one of the main reasons that I created a community for teachers looking to transition. People transition out of other careers all the time, and I wanted to help normalize the teacher's decision to do the same. Leaving teaching was a really rough personal decision for me, and I didn't take it lightly. I went into teaching with the idea that it was going to be my forever career and that it was my calling. Like many other teachers facing the same predicament today, I realized it wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't have a plan B, and so I was super overwhelmed. I was juggling all these super heavy emotions and soul searching, and I had a lot of other people encouraging me to stick it out because I was a so-called good teacher.
I heard the exact same thing all the time. Like, but you can't quit. You're such a great teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I was a good teacher, and I know what they were trying to do was encourage me. But even that kind of muddied the waters of my thought process of whether or not I should leave. So I just had to shift my own personal mindset and do what was right for me. I eventually left the job as an educational consultant for a large technology company. And luckily, all of my coworkers were really, really kind about my decision. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. Even today, I have teachers who are trolling my Instagram that call others on their backstabbers or quitters. So the stigma of leaving teaching today is obviously still a huge issue. And to anyone struggling with the guilt, just weigh your options and make the best decision for you and your family and just drown out all of the outside chatter. You don't have to be miserable in your career to make a transition for something that's a better fit for you. You went into this position because you have a good heart, and you'll continue to have a good heart even if you decide to leave. You can continue to support education in other ways through volunteer work or campaigning for pro-education candidates or propositions. I've been volunteering at a nonprofit organization that teaches creative writing workshops for low-income youth in Los Angeles. And so I still spend my time giving back to the community and doing things like that.
That's such a great point, because I feel like a lot of people get into teaching because they want to make a difference. They don't just want a job. They want to feel like you said, it's a calling to them, and they want to feel like the work that they're doing really matters. And I think it's important to point out that A, classroom teaching is not the only way to do work that matters, and that B, you can move into another role and still have time, maybe even more time and energy and bandwidth to give back and do work that feels important to you in other contexts.
Yes, you do not have to sacrifice everything to still be a good person.
Yes. So good. So I hear a lot from teachers who feel like they're needing some sort of change. It might be a professional change, might be a lifestyle change. They're just feeling like teaching isn't something they can envision themselves doing all the way until retirement. And I'm seeing that more and more, honestly. I think a few decades ago, teaching was something that you started right out of college. You may take a few years off to have kids or something like that, but you're pretty much going to retire as a teacher. You might even retire in the same school, in the same district. And now I just feel like teaching has become such a demanding, stressful position that it's just not something that people can see themselves doing for 20, 30, 40 years anymore. Is that something that you've noticed too?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the main questions I was asking myself is, can I envision myself doing this for another year? What about 5 years? What about 20 years? And that's where it really struck I need to make an exit strategy.
Right. So there's this feeling that I don't know if I can really stick with this or not. But in addition to feeling the guilt, there's also another thing that I think is holding back a lot of the teachers that I talk to. And that is they don't know what else they can do. And some of that concern is because they don't think anyone's going to want to hire them. They feel like an education degree is only good for teaching. It's only, and all they have is classroom experience, and that's not valuable. So I want to start by debunking this myth that someone who's only been a teacher throughout their adult lives is somehow only qualified to teach.
Yeah. So I think besides the teacher guilt that everyone faces and then not having a plan B because they assumed it was going to be their forever career, I think another reason why it's so hard to transition out of teaching is because we have low self-esteem as career professionals. We feel devalued in our work, and over a period of time, it takes a toll on us mentally. One of the main lessons that I teach is just describing yourself as a professional, and it helps teachers develop mindset shifts to overcome some of these mental hurdles that we place on ourselves. The good news is the fact that you have a degree is a positive when you're applying for any position, even if it's an education degree. Most HR professionals are actually just more looking for experience than they are for specific degrees. So you don't even usually need to worry about going back for a specific industry degree unless you're trying to go into something like the health field. It's more important that you're able to showcase how the skills you've acquired translate into the skills that make you the most qualified candidate for the position. So some of the more obvious skills that teachers have are curriculum writing, content creation, professional development, and training implementation. But depending on your job duties as a teacher, you may also have managerial experience, project management, marketing skills, budgeting experience. So if you were in charge of managing the TA's schedules, or if you helped the PTA with a budget, you can write all of those down as experience. And it might kind of feel like a stretch when you're writing them down, but it's really important that you yourself realize how these skills translate into other industries so that you're super confident that you have the skills required when you go into the interviews or apply for jobs.
That's such a great point about just being able to describe what you do, because so many people in other industries don't know exactly what it is that teachers do. And so it's really up to us to be able to tell them, look, it involves a whole lot more than, we're not babysitters. We're doing a lot of stuff in here. We have a lot of skill sets that are very diverse.
Yeah, that's a great point. For me, when I first started applying to new positions, I had my teaching resume and I made a couple of quick tweaks to my resume, but I wasn't explicitly going in and translating everything. And that was a huge no-no because I kind of I assumed that someone would make the inference that, oh, this translates into this, into the corporate world, but that is not the case. So that's really, I've developed a ton of different just corporate to classroom vocabulary that you can kind of steal and tweak so you don't have to think of it, but it is really, really important for you to be able to translate it for them.
That's really, really helpful. And I also want to go back to the point that you made about teachers feeling devalued in their work, because I don't think that that's a point that can be overstated either. The amount of different types of jobs that teachers do is just, it's pretty unbelievable. You know, I mean, we kind of sum it up with little cliches like, oh, teachers wear many hats, but it's way more than just wearing many hats. You're doing many, many different jobs. And I think for a lot of the times the work goes unappreciated, and a lot of it is unseen labor. A lot of it is emotional labor, behind the scenes stuff, things that no one really sees that you're doing and you're not really recognized for. So it's so easy to buy into this idea that I'm, quote, just a teacher. You know, I don't know how to do anything else but teach, and not realize that the way the system is set up to devalue you and not recognize your accomplishments, it shapes the way that you think about yourself. And that to me is like one of the most heartbreaking things about supporting teachers who are in this position. And this is why I'm so excited to have you on the show and talking about the different supports that you have for teachers, because they need someone to help them believe in themselves and see in their value, and then convey that accurately to other organizations and companies that might hire them.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest myths out there that I constantly see teachers saying is, no one will hire a teacher. And that's absolutely not true. No one will value this degree except for an education. And that is absolutely not true. So I'm really happy that you brought that up.
So how can a teacher figure out what job would be a good fit for them? In other words, how do they translate the things that they love about teaching into finding another job that allows them to get those same levels of satisfaction or use those same skills?
This is one of the most common questions I get asked, and I established a framework to help walk teachers through determining what jobs are the best fit for them specifically. So one of the first questions to ask is whether or not you want to stay in education. You can stay in education and work for education companies, or you can make a complete pivot into a corporate environment using your skills. So if you've been a teacher for less than 5 years, you'll be qualified for careers that are higher paying, but entry level, like account manager positions or implementation specialists. And if you've been a teacher longer, you'll be looking more for like corporate trainer or learning and development manager positions. Everyone's going to have different qualifications, and they've established with their own job duties as a teacher. So you're also going to have to account for that and experience from other positions or volunteer work that you've established in your professional life. So some of the teacher career coach members have transitioned into curriculum writing, instructional designer, and office manager positions. And just another thing to remember is not all jobs are going to be the same. So even if you're pursuing a position as an instructional designer, you may find some job listings you're underqualified for, or some you're overqualified for. And that's why I walk all the teacher career coach members through steps to reading job listings to help determine which positions would be the best fit within their qualifications.
I'm betting that some of the teachers you work with are surprised at the number of different opportunities that are out there. Like, I bet you there are people who are listening to this who are like, corporate trainer, I didn't know that there was such a thing. Or learning and development manager, like I didn't know that that was a job. Like there's so many other types of jobs that I think we're not even aware of, because when you're little, you hear things like, what do you want to be when you grow up? A teacher, a doctor, a firefighter. And we don't think about all these other different types of positions that maybe you don't know anyone else who does that job. Maybe there aren't a lot of those opportunities out there, but they do exist, and they are just perfect for the skill set of a teacher.
Yeah, a lot of these jobs were completely brand new to me. When I left the classroom, it was for a full-time position as an educational consultant. And that's where I was like, wait, what's an implementation specialist? And all that is someone who's really good at like the product and can walk someone through step by step how to implement that product. So it's another word for like a teacher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a ton of positions like that were always off my radar, where I'm like, oh, that they hire teachers all of the time.
I remember talking to a former teacher once who she writes the manuals for different products. So like when you buy an appliance, you know how like a lot of manuals just don't explain what to do very well. This company got really smart and hired a teacher because she knows how to break down steps and how to explain things clearly and how to make sure the diagrams match the words. Like it's a fantastic job. She loves it. She gets to work remotely. It's like, who even really thought about that? But yeah, someone's got to write the manuals and the assembly instructions for the products that we buy. And a teacher is great for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask a follow-up question here, because there may be some people who are listening to this and thinking, well, that's really cool, but I'm in a very rural area or I'm in a small town and it's just really hard for people to get work here in general. There's not a lot of jobs. And I don't know that we have like corporate trainers in my town. So what would you say to those people?
Well, there's a ton of companies out there that will hire for remote opportunities. So like even implementation specialists and instructional designers, there are companies that don't mind if you do everything virtually from wherever you're at. One thing that I actually did is I went in and I found all the education companies that I could, and I found their careers pages. And then I also flagged where their headquarter location is, but also if they're hiring for remote opportunities, just to kind of help save all the members of my course some time on just going in and flagging what they would be able to do working from home from wherever they're at.
What is the job market really like these days? I'm wondering if you can speak to folks who've been teaching for quite a while and they really don't have any idea how the application process has changed, how much competition there is for jobs, what kind of jobs are available, what kinds of things are you seeing right now in terms of trends and people's ability to get hired?
So the job market has changed a lot due to the advancements of technology. So like I was just saying, there's a ton of opportunities for remote working or working from home. And my first position outside of the classroom was actually mostly remote unless I was traveling for public speaking events or working in schools or national conferences. Teachers who are still in the classroom today can even start freelancing positions to help build resume experience and gain extra income. If you're looking for a position where they want to see tech or design skills or something like instructional design, you actually really want to start building out that digital resume that you can refer to with your experience. And another thing to think about is because of technology, the majority of resumes are now submitted online. So it's so much easier to submit a ton of resumes quickly. But with that, the way that you need to write your resumes actually needs to change. Around 75% of resumes actually never even see human eyes. The majority of HR professionals use applicant tracking systems to sort through all their applications to find only the most qualified positions because they're getting so many resumes, which means you need to ensure that your formatting, your keywords, the file type that's submitted is all actually accurate in order for the resume to get opened. So you can even pinpoint companies that you'd like to work for, and you're even more likely to get your resume opened if you apply directly to their careers page on their website than using one of those larger job search engines. And if you can find out about a job that's available even before it's posted through networking, it's even more promising.
It's a good point you made about how teachers who are still in the classroom can start freelancing to sort of build resume experience and gain extra income. That was my first step out of the classroom as well, as I just started looking to see what was available. And I found a part-time position working for, I'll go ahead and say the name of the company because people know that I've worked for them before and I have nothing but positive things to say about them. I worked for BrainPop for a while. I was editing their BrainPop Junior scripts and writing the lesson plans that go with their movies and that kind of thing. And it was not intended to be a remote position. They did not advertise it that way. But my husband was living in New York. And so I was slowly trying to transition to New York. I'm like, look, I'm not really living there yet. I'm still kind of down in Florida. Can we do remote part-time? And they really worked with me and I was able to make that work. And then I was able to find part-time work doing instructional coaching for another company that was there. And so I sort of cobbled together some different jobs rather than finding like one full-time job. And that might be one thing that we want to talk about here too, is that I know that a lot of companies, just for various factors that I won't get into here, are moving away from full-time and benefits and moving more into, sort of like the gig economy and freelancers and contractors and things like that. But and that can be scary to a teacher if you're used to having guaranteed income and a pension and all of those kinds of things. Letting that go can be really hard, but you can make a really great living sort of diversifying your income streams. So you have money working a little bit for this company, then you're doing this other thing for this company. Maybe you're doing this one thing for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about those kind of opportunities as well? Do you see that as a positive thing?
One thing that I always ask everyone to think about is how many hours are they actually working as a teacher and how many hours would they get back, and kind of do the math and figure out how much are you actually getting paid. For instance, as a teacher, maybe I worked 70 hours per week, and maybe I was taking a $5,000 or $10,000 pay cut hypothetically to leave and go to a different position. But what if I was gaining 20 hours a week off of that? What would I be doing with those extra time? And so for me, I left the classroom for a better position, but I also had so much more free time that I started a Teachers Pay Teachers store, which ended up making me a passive income stream. So that's also something that I really talk to my students about, and really am passionate about teachers kind of figuring out if they can create different passive income streams that they enjoy doing. And that way they'll be able to supplement their income even further if they do happen to only be working in freelancing positions or something where they're not having as many benefits as they had in the classroom.
Right, because if you really do the math on your hourly rate as a teacher, if you divide it by the 40-hour work week that you're paid for, it's a decent living. But when you look at the fact that most teachers are working, an additional 10, 20, 30 hours a week, some people have crunched the numbers in the 40-hour teacher work week club and discovered they're making like $10 an hour.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
not hard to find another job that's paying you $10 an hour. Just saying, you can find a job now that pays you 15, 20, you work less hours, you make more money. So you kind of have to break out of that traditional framework where I need to know exactly what I'm getting paid every 2 weeks, and be open to sort of thinking about hours and hourly rates and that sort of thing in a different way than I think we're accustomed to in education.
Yeah, my first jump into an educational consultant position felt a little risky because I did not have the benefits. But then I found myself making so much passive income with the Teachers Pay Teachers store that I was making more, and still having a retirement. I was making more than I would have if I stayed in the classroom for 10 years within the first 2 years of being outside of the classroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that you would advise a teacher to do if they are considering leaving the classroom? You've got them excited now. They're really thinking this could be a possibility for them. What's the first thing they should do, their first step?
Start getting your timeline together. Figure out your peak application season. It's around 2 months before your contract expires if you're planning on staying through the end of the year. And then just start backwards mapping what you're realistically going to be able to do prior to that. And at minimum, you're going to need to identify a few career paths that you're interested in and write transition resumes so that you can have them ready to go during that peak time.
So if your school year ends, let's say at the end of May or sometime in June, your peak application period then would be like March, April. That's when you'd want to start?
Yeah. So if you were leaving the classroom around June, I would start applying in March, and you want around 6 or 8 weeks to be pushing out your resumes, as many as you possibly can, just so that you can get your foot in the door and get interviews during that time. And some interview processes actually take 4 or 6 weeks. So you want to give yourself a big chunk of time that you're pushing out a ton of resumes.
I want to talk about the resources and support that you have for teachers who are wanting to transition out of the classroom, because, and I'll be really honest here, one of the main reasons that I wanted to have you on the show is because I've been getting questions for years, ever since I left the classroom, from teachers who want to transition out, but they need support. The information that you're sharing here is not widely available. Trying to get any kind of like practical information to get the resume support, to figure out how to translate what you're doing into another career is really, really hard. I know there's a big, big need for that. But I just honestly wasn't passionate about that work. That just wasn't the kind of work that I wanted to do. So what I was hoping was to find someone else who was doing that well and then promote their program as an affiliate for the program. And so I've watched you. I've watched a couple other folks who have been doing this for the last 6 to 12 months, really. I've taken a long time to make this decision because when I endorse something, I that means something. I'm not going to point people towards resources that I think are just sort of mediocre. And have just been really super impressed by what I've seen on your social media in terms of you providing the mindset support to teachers that they need and helping to build their confidence and giving them practical tools. And I really like the resources that you are offering them. So I want you to tell teachers more about them, because I have looked. And I will tell you that these are the best resources on the market. If someone wants to transition out of teaching and just isn't sure how to do it and feel like they just need more guidance and more tools for that, so that they're not spending hours hunting through job listings and trying to figure it out on their own, I really think that your program is great for that.
So I created a digital course. It's called the Teacher Career Coach course. During that process, I hired out a certified career coach and an expert resume writer to help create many of the resources in the course. And the video modules, I walk teachers through identifying their new career path, describing themselves as a professional and mindset shifts, networking, resume writing, salary negotiation, interviews, and more. The course actually currently includes a ton of printable templates, like a list of translated vocabulary from classroom to corporate to make your resume writing process way easier. And the resume writer I work with has created sample transition resumes for new teachers and experienced teachers, all looking to transition to different job markets. So I even answer some of the trickier questions, like how to talk in interviews about your decision to leave the classroom or a toxic administration or shifts in politics within your district. And we have a private community built out for our course members, so you can chat with one another for encouragement and support. So if you're just getting out there and exploring your options, but not ready to dive into it, I also have a free ebook with some samples from the course and just a list of the top jobs that hire teachers. So all of this can be found at one website page, which is teachercareercoach.com/truth for teachers. So that's where you can find more about the program that I've put together and then grab some free resources if you wanted to.
So teachercareercoach.com/truth for teachers. Put all of this information. So anything people have heard today and they want to learn more about or they want to get it, they can just go there. And, when I think about the cost of hiring because there are career consultants and coaches, there are resume coaches, those things are so expensive, Daphne. And if you are on a teacher salary, it is really hard to invest, $2,000 in a coach when you're scared about not having a job soon. You're afraid of not having any income and losing your pension. And now you've got to kick out all this money to help you. So I'm really, really grateful that you chose to make this affordable for teachers and something that is accessible for as many people as possible who want that support.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. I am not a certified career coach. I am just a former teacher myself. So what I did is I created a model where all of my teachers that are in my course, they all are asking kind of the same questions. Everyone has some own specifics about them, but I'm outsourcing that large fee and I'm hiring out a certified career coach that will answer their questions. So everyone gets to see that answer. And it's not at an additional cost to them. It's just a membership cost.
Right. So you're basically like sharing the cost of it. Like just pay for access to the course. You get all of these benefits and then you get access to these resources that have been created by these experts in the field, rather than you having to go out, find the person yourself, work with them individually, go through that whole process and shoulder the whole financial burden on your own. Was that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's leave out with a takeaway truth, something that you want every teacher to understand about transitioning out of teaching.
So one thing I want everybody to understand is it's okay to leave teaching if you're miserable. You don't have to worry about the guilt. It is something that is normal in other jobs, but you can also make a career change even if you love teaching, if that's the best choice for you in your life.
Right. Because when you leave teaching, it doesn't mean that you hate it, doesn't mean that you couldn't hack it, even though you may feel that way at times. You may feel that sort of guilt or that pressure. But the truth is that you don't have to stay in the same job for your whole life. There's just so many other options out there for you. And, there are always choices. You don't ever have to stay someplace that just isn't meeting your needs. And I think that's so important to convey to people. If you found this information helpful, head over to teachercareercoach.com/truth for teachers. The link is in the show notes, and you can get Daphne's free ebook, plus course samples and a top jobs that hire teachers list. Have a great week. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.